Welcome to Soltron. This is the video review for Carbot, the Braves Grand Carbot GX. Alright, and here's a size comparison with some other robots. He's about 11 inches, 11 and a half to the top of his head crest. And here's a couple more size comparisons. Okay, and of course he comes in a gigantic box. So here's the front with the window. And then side view, and then you get the back view, which has the full combine mode and the two component robots. And then the other side shows just, what is it, Grand Carbot? Yeah, Grand Carbot X, just his base mode. And then he comes with two sets of instructions, one for his core robot, and then one for the combined mode. And then he does come with these stickers, which I have no intention to put on. Alright, and here's a 360 view of this guy, and I think he does a really good job of all the different forms just combining into something more interesting. I think this robot mode is actually better than the two individual modes. And that doesn't usually happen. Usually the combined mode is usually worse for whatever reason. But I think this guy comes together really well. Yeah, I think just the proportions work out. I think they put maybe too many pieces in the legs because he's got these giant boots and then he's got this side piece and then the giant knee pad. I wish they would have distributed some of that a little bit more. And it really annoys me that like his original wings just like fold back here and then he's got these combiner wings. It's like weird, really weird he's got two sets of wings. That's kind of an odd choice to me. I don't see why these wings didn't just combine with these wings. It's just a really weird choice. Oh, and I really do hate this axe weapon. It's just so stupid looking. But other than that, I think everything about him is just really good. The proportions look really nice. And he does come together really well, and he is pretty fun to play with. And because his legs are so solidly built, you can actually like play around with this figure. So everything comes together pretty well. So we can get a close-up of this head, and of course it looks really great with this chrome gold head crest. I like the way the chrome gold looks, but I kind of don't like touching it because it just leaves fingerprints everywhere. And if you rub it off, you might actually tarnish the gold a little bit, so that's a little bit annoying. But regardless, obviously just great head mode, looks very good, and all the extra armor up pieces just kind of work really nicely. Like you get these gauntlets, which make his arms beefier. You get obviously these huge leg chunks. You get like these huge feet slabs, and then these side pieces, and then these knee pads. So really the core robot that you see of Grand Carbot X is really just this part, the thighs, his waist. That's all the original robot. And that's about it. They cover pretty much everything up. His head, his chest, his shoulders, everything gets like a little upgrade. So that's pretty cool. And of course, the shoulder cannons are just undeniably gigantic, and you do get some articulation. They can pivot all the way up if you wanted to have them in like a raised position for whatever reason. I kind of wish they integrated into the wings a little bit more, but I also think that this position right over the shoulders is pretty good. So it looks very aggressive. So still pretty good placement. But yeah, everything, like I said, just comes together really well. Yeah, I guess we'll just go over his different accessories. So one thing that is a little bit annoying about him is he does have friction thigh swivels. These really should have been ratchet joints. He's just too big to just have friction joints. But let's start with this huge cannon. So this is a pretty cool accessory from the Grand Carbot X, where you just put his two regular sized guns into this train piece. You can see there's really not much to it, and it just becomes like this gigantic cannon, which is pretty fun. And these ports are like 4mm, so they're not going to fit in anybody else's hand. And they are long and they feel kind of delicate, so I wouldn't be surprised if these break. So that's kind of an annoying thing. Why not just do the 5mm? Like, come on. Now he's a little bit back heavy. His axe weapon is very silly and just made mostly of leftover parts. Like this is the original chest piece for the Grand Carbot X. And then you have, actually this looks kind of like a decent looking axe without the chest piece. I wouldn't say this is terrible, but the annoying thing about this piece is that you just don't really use it in any other modes. I guess it's got this handle. You could use it as a shield, but it's just kind of literally a useless piece. It just hangs out in the back of Cannon X, so it's just kind of annoying. And then you get this, like, once you strip everything down, you just get this very simple sword, which is definitely a downgrade from his Carbot X sword. And then you can take the cannons from Cannon X, and those just peg into the tops of the shoulders here. And again, they have very long shafts. It's a little tight, and then you have like these holes right here. And these are also the 4mm, so these will peg into his fist too. So you can have him wielding these cannons. Yeah, so he just has like an endless variety of attack options. And then of course you can also get this piece, and you can just open it up. You could take off these smaller cannons. He could also hold these two, of course. It would have been cool if maybe they combine with these larger ones. I don't think they do. Not really. And then you can get this little 4mm peg, and you can peg this into this little piece. Okay, I'm glad that didn't fall on the floor. And then he can hold this in his fist now. So you can also have him wielding this train shield, which is dumb looking, but it's a good use of the train parts, I guess. So this actually kind of looks cool in hand with his cannon and the train shield out. That's a pretty good looking super robot, I have to say. And if anyone was wondering from my Cannon X video, G-Market did send me a whole new cannon, so now I have 3 of these guns, which is kind of ridiculous, but that's that, because that nozzle piece was missing on one of mine. So great customer service as usual. But yeah, I think even without all his gear on, I think he looks pretty good. One thing I like to do, which is kind of a dumb thing, because I think the white is kind of necessary on this guy, but you can actually rip off these wings and you can reverse them so the red part is showing, which I think looks pretty cool. And a lot of hero robots are red, so why not just continue that theme. Oh. And this guy can be kind of annoying to stand up because he's got such weird feet. Like it just rests on this little nub basically. And then you got like these friction thigh swivels, so he can just like displace himself. But yeah, I like this look with his red wings showing. And another plus side of having the red wings is you can actually fold them back. So you can have kind of a storage mode. So you can just get an appreciation of just what his base mode looks like. But I think the wings do have to kind of be fanned out. Just because his legs are so big, you just have to balance out these giant legs. Another thing I wish they would have done is made these shoulder pads. I wish they would have put them more on the end, because these shoulder pads are actually not much of an upgrade from his regular shoulder pads. They're almost the same size. So you just put them over, and it's just kind of pointless. Like, you see how big this shoulder pad is. You see this one, it's not much bigger. I wish it would have pegged on like here, so it would have become like a really long shoulder pad. But it's not that big a deal. I still think he looks great. He holds together pretty securely, which is very important. Yeah, and you just can't really complain, to be honest. He does have ball joint neck. He's got ratcheted shoulders, which have limited outward motion, so that's a little bit unfortunate. He does have ratcheted elbows, full 90 degrees, and he does have friction thigh swivels, or bicep swivels. And then he does have 360 on the shoulder on a nice spring ratchet. He doesn't have any waist swivel, unfortunately. He does have, you can see, he's got these universal hips, of course. So you got full outward kick. You got a full forward kick. His leg's a little heavy, though. And then you would have back kick, but he's got all this skirt behind him, so it's not going to happen. And then he does have his full knee bend, 90 degrees. And then he does have this very loose thigh swivel, which is a little annoying. Nothing in the ankle. He does have ankle pivot on the core figure, but that's disabled because of all this connection. So yeah, that pretty much covers it. So now we'll just go over like de-armoring this guy. So we take this like little fastener right here, and you have to unbuckle his gauntlets. Oh yeah, and I forgot to say his gauntlets do have a swivel as well, so he does have wrist rotation, even in this mode, which is very cool. So you can get like the upturned fist kind of look. And then, yeah, so you just do that to the other side as well. We're going to just pull off this piece, and then we're going to remove his crown. And then we can go ahead and take off his shoulder pads. And then you can pull off the wings, just as you saw. They're just in here, and there's two tabs right there, or two holes for the tabs, which are like 3mm pegs, which is a little bit scary. And that's his whole upper body. Now for his lower body, you actually have to unpeg here, and then this whole section will come off. And then you just pull off the knee pads, and then this waist section pegs into the back of his leg. So you're gonna have to unpeg that, which is pegged right there. And then he's got two pegs on his heels. So you can just move his toe up here, and then you can just yank his foot out. Takes a little bit of force. And then same thing, we'll just unpeg the side section. Oh, and the knee pad decided to come off. And then just unpeg this waist section, and then yank his foot off. And then you have the 100 pieces of Canon X lying everywhere. And then you have the base mode of Grand Carbot X. Alright, now we have Grand Carbot X with his shield in place, his sword, and then his guns can be placed on his wings. And you can also like lift up the wings just to give them a little bit more volume in this mode. But then you can't really open them if the guns are here. They get in the way. And there are these pegs here, but the gun just does not fit in there, and I am worried about breaking these, so I'm just not going to force it. But you can go ahead and open up his wings. You get this kind of look, which is odd. It just doesn't look right. I don't know. It looks kind of like a moth. His wings just don't look right. They look kind of better when they're just pointed down, to be honest. So, yeah, and then of course you got his head mode. So without the head crest, it's a little bit more plain, but I think that works in his favor. He looks just more simple. And then we can compare him with some other robots. So he loses a lot of that height and bulk that he had earlier. And this might be a dumb take, but I think that the actual core Carbot X is actually more impressive looking than the Grand Carbot X. I think this one's maybe more fun to play with, but I think this car mode just screams like super robot. He just looks so cool and intimidating and stylish. And this one, he just looks a little bit more generic. And that's fine because I think the combined mode makes up for it. But I just really like how his base mode looks like, or his core robot. And I already showed off all the articulation this guy can do. It hasn't changed. The only difference now is that now he has these ankle tilts. And they're very minor ankle tilts, so they're not going to be that useful, to be honest. For dynamic poses, he can definitely pull some poses off. He's got all the articulation you could possibly ask for. It's just that this is loose, but otherwise he does pretty well. So he's going to look pretty dynamic no matter what kind of pose you put him in. Guess we just put his wings up because why not? But yeah, not bad. Just like Carbot X, he's got a lot of dynamic poses going on. And he can wield his two pistols as well, and he looks good doing it. So transformation on this guy is pretty unique. He's technically a 3-component combining robot, basically, but you take this chest piece off, And I think actually having him without the chest piece on and maybe his wings lowered, I think this is kind of an interesting look too, like a depowered or a powered down looking mode. I think this actually doesn't, well, I think this actually does look bad. He looks even more generic, but I think this could serve as like a first form kind of look to him. But anyway, you also, let's see, you're gonna push down this tiny little head crest, so you got to be very careful with that. It's very flimsy, and you got to pull up, or he's got these little securing arms that go onto his waist, so you have to detach these little arms here, then you can pull up his whole crotch piece here, and that goes over his head obviously. And then inside you're going to see you have his waist, which just comes right off, so he's got the train component, and then you've got his little Carbot X inside, and this, I really don't like the way this little figure feels. He's made of little ball joints. I'm glad nothing popped off, but he just like nuzzles in there, and he just pegs in with these two pegs right there. But you're gonna take out his tiny little sword, like this is very small, and you kind of just pull out all his limbs, straighten out his feet, and then you just kind of straighten him out the best you can. These little ball joints are probably like 2 millimeters, and they have a really annoying habit of popping off, so I'm just trying to very carefully position everything and see if I can do it without popping anything off. Okay, so I actually managed to transform him without detaching his body. So there he is. You can see he's a good rendition of his DX counterpart. And he does have a good amount of articulation for this little figure, which I think was very unnecessary. I would have actually preferred like a more stable figure that had less articulation, but that's fine. So here's his little core robot. Of course, you can put the sword in his hand, and he can pull off pretty much any pose. I think, does he have? Oh yeah, he even has waist swivel. That's pretty crazy. But everything's on ball joints, so you got to be careful not to pop it off. And to get this thing in his little car mode, you just transform him basically the same way as the DX figure. You're going to straighten out his arms. You're going to, he does have one extra step where you have to like make a V for his head crest, and then you just collapse his legs into place, and then point up his toes, and then you just sandwich all this together. And then you point his elbows way up here, and then you kind of just like tilt these shoulder pads around. So this is where he gets really fiddly, where the DX version doesn't have any of that issue. But I think this guy also has better wing articulation too, so there's a trade-off. But basically you're just going to get everything into that position like this, and be mindful of that head crest, and there's your basic car. So he does make, when you're done, something that's like a little bit smaller than a Matchbox car, I want to say. Maybe the same size, a little bit smaller. So that's cool. I guess you can use it like in different play sets. But yeah, if you buy this guy used, good luck getting this piece intact, because it's definitely going to fall to pieces. But that's just kind of a limit of having a figure that's this tiny and this articulated. Alright, and that's probably like the last time I'll ever transform this little guy. It's just not a lot of fun. But you can see how they would scale together. Like technically he should grow to, I don't know, 6 times his size basically for this exosuit. And of course you can just transform this thing. You don't have to have the core robot inside at all. It just fills up this gap in here. Alright, anyway, transforming the legs is very simple. You're just going to point the toes, you're going to lift up this panel, and then flip out this little panel, and then you can push this piece up to make everything flush, and then you put these panels into place right there. So of course you do the same thing on the other side. Lift this piece up, and then you have to Push this up with some force. And there's basically your train mode. You're going to want to make sure the wheels are facing down, and then you're going to have to take the rest of the train piece, and that's where you're going to put the sword right here in this socket. And then you're just going to sandwich this around his waist. So yeah, it's definitely a big cheat. It's hard to say that the train really transforms because that shield becomes such a big part of it. But then you get this gigantic train piece, which I think scales really well with this car. It is about maybe matchbox size. So here it is with like a claw rail train. So I think it actually does scale with claw rail, even though it doesn't have the wheels. I don't think you can put it on a track, but it is about the same size. So that's pretty cool to have it be in the Shinkalion universe. I love that. And then for his upper body, you're going to open up these panels and then fold his fists in, and those will just become like the boosters for the jet. And then you can just fold the wings down. These shoulder pads are going to fold up to become the intakes. And then these guns, there's like little clips here. You're going to put the guns inside where the car robot was. Okay, and those clip very securely, and then the wrists are going to clip onto the wings to help secure everything and make it nice and solid. I just want to straighten up the head a little bit, and then for this waist section, you're just going to fold down the hip skirts, and then the crotch is going to fold up into here, and then you can fold down the landing gear a little bit, and then this whole cockpit section folds up on like an accordion kind of piece, and then you just snug all that together. And then finally you're going to take the chest piece, and that's going to clip into place maybe into the bottom of the guns. So we have this jet mode, which is pretty sleek and alien looking. It looks pretty good. And it's fairly clean from the back. I guess I could have turned his head around so we don't have visible head. These vehicles, as far as I know, do not combine with each other, so you can't make like a giant flying train. So they are, unfortunately, separate, and then you can just have, I guess, Carbot X. You can just ride on the top. But there you go. That's the pretty much whole set. This thing cost me a lot of money, I'll be honest. I think I had to pay maybe $112 just to buy it from G Market, which is usually fine. I wouldn't mind that. But then I had to pay like an import charge on top of that of another like $22. So this was like about $150 just for this robot. So I definitely have to cut back on my spending. This seems like it's going to be a long time trend, unfortunately. But I would recommend this guy. He's fun. The combined mode with Canon X is very cool. I guess having this little minifigure is fun in its own way. Yeah, I think it's just a really well thought out toy. There's a couple little things that are a little bit annoying, but I don't think that'll detract from the overall package. And then I wouldn't really recommend this for a kid because this guy is so flimsy. Maybe just take this part away. But otherwise, it's pretty simple transformation, and it's a good time. So yeah, I really enjoyed this figure, and I'll see you in the next one.